Welcome to Pablo Torre Finds Out. I am Pablo Torre, and today we're going to find out what this sound is.
You're alone. Nobody knows what that's like.
Right after this ad.
You're listening to DraftKings Network.
The NFL season is finally here, so make sure you're ready with NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV. It gives you the most live NFL games all in one place, exactly what you need to make your Sundays more magical. Sign up today at youtube.com/Sunday Ticket. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games excludes digital-only games.
The club of number one overall picks. Do you remember actually your statistics from 2005 with the Niners?
I cannot get the numbers 1 and 11 out of my head, which 11, obviously is the number that I wore for most of my career. But 1 touchdown, 11 interceptions is just something that I will never forget.
3rd and 7, and perhaps out of field goal range and less. Down the middle, intercepted. Picked off by Cato June again, and June out to the 45-yard line as he has the twin picks against young Alex Smith.
Your adjusted net yards per attempt, 1.11.
It was that high.
You had a positive adjusted net yards per attempt, but your value, approximately according to Pro Football Reference, and this does not really happen very often, for that rookie year in San Francisco, number one overall pick, was -3.
It had to be negative.
Yeah.
Like I was well below any average replacement.
Okay, so negativity. I want to talk to you about negativity and also replacement. Because my old friend Alex Smith, the former number one overall pick in the 2005 NFL draft, taken by the San Francisco 49ers, is intimately familiar with this concept. Alex would go on to have one of the most impressive 14-year careers in NFL history, by the way, in terms of not just on-field success, but also injuries overcome and players mentored, as we'll discuss. He has been both the upstart and also the incumbent, the new guy and also the old guy that Patrick Mahomes, for instance, in Kansas City, would ultimately replace. But Alex Smith arrived in the league with the highest possible expectations. And he was horrible. Which is also how America has been describing Caleb Williams, the would-be rookie savior of the Bears, and allegedly the next Patrick Mahomes, and also Bryce Young, the second-year savior for the Panthers, who lost his job last week and then had to watch his former backup cruise to Carolina's first win. And also, it describes Trevor Lawrence at this point, selected first in 2021 by the Jaguars, who currently looks like he is in hell. All 3 quarterbacks, like Alex, are members of the number one overall pick club. All 3, simultaneously struggling right now, are the story of this season thus far. And so what I wanted to find out today is the stuff that this club of would-be leaders cannot say publicly while they're going through it. What I wanted to find out is what it's really like when the NFL eats its young. How did you deal, Alex, with the idea that maybe you were going to be a bust?
I mean, honestly, I tried to pretend like it didn't bother me. I tried to pretend that I was tough enough, Pablo. If you're a football player, you can just get through this on your own. I didn't talk about it. I just tried to present a strong, calm, cool, collected, because again, as the quarterback and the face, like you just said, the face of these organizations, like that's what you've been brought up in the football world to present, to strength. And I had never dealt with expectations like that in my life.
Aaron Rodgers, why is Alex Smith the right guy to go number one?
Well, no question, he was the guy. And the delta between Alex Smith and the other quarterbacks, to me, that's correct,
Solid.
was significant. And I look at him and I see a polished college quarterback that projects well the National Football League.
And as a number one pick, it's there. You know, I remember the cautionary tales of the bus growing up. You know, listen, I grew up in San Diego. I very much remember Ryan Leaf getting drafted, that draft with Peyton Manning. And it haunts you. It consumes you, Pablo. And it festered and it got worse and worse and worse to the point where, honestly, there probably wasn't a second of my day that I didn't feel the weight of it.
The notion of self-doubt. That, wait a minute, maybe the story I tell myself about myself is not actually the story of my life.
Yep.
When you're in a locker room, when you're a person in the world seeing headlines and the TV is saying all this stuff, and now, of course, with the internet, it's even more so. Can you give me a sense of a glimpse into what that looked like, what you were hearing, what you were actually sort of trying to ignore?
I had one college scholarship. 2.5 years earlier, I had one college scholarship, and then, jumped ahead 2.5 years, and I was the number one pick in the draft. And there was definitely a part of me, again, to the San Francisco 49ers. It's Joe Montana, it's Steve Young. And then to your point, though, even embedded in that was this idea of the number one pick. And I mentioned Peyton Manning because he is like the poster child of the success story of the number one pick. That's what every organization holds up as, like, we hope that this is what it'll be. Huge imposter syndrome, Pablo. Like, how long until they find out they made a mistake, right? Like, how long? Seriously questioned if I was good enough. Felt like I had to be perfect was probably the biggest thing that I became consumed with fear to make, like, any mistake. Like, I just tried to be perfect. And so I walked around on eggshells. I took the field on eggshells, just consumed with fear and self-doubt. And then again, my mind, though, actually wasn't ever really even present. I completely, like, self-sabotaged. I was in, like, Space Mountain, like wondering what they're going to write about me in the paper. I'll never forget, you go through the combine, you're doing these visits, the draft comes, I find myself in the green room wearing this ridiculous suit. What the hell is happening?
I remember this suit.
Like, I couldn't even, what the hell is happening? And then all of a sudden, the commissioner walks out and says my name first. You hold up the jersey, you take pics, and, like, all of a sudden I'm going to the airport, Pablo, and I'm flying across the country to San Francisco. I was in a mini camp a week later as the starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, right? Like, you got to learn a playbook. I thought I was going to have this chance to, like, exhale, and you don't. And I'll never forget that first mini camp. I line up in warm-up lines, right? Like, I've been doing this my whole career, and I line up in warm-up lines, and I'm all the way over. Just for everybody to visualize, I'm all the way over on the furthest side of the right. So I'm the line closest to the sideline. And there are 90 reporters and photographers, Pablo, taking pictures of me, watching me stretch. Stretch. And I remember just like claustrophobic. I mean, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
Like, it just it overwhelmed me. I had never experienced that. I came from Utah. Like, I could walk around campus and not get recognized. And now, like, there's 100 photographers and reporters, like, analyzing my calf stretch, like, whatever the hell. Like, it was ridiculous.
There's again, as always, a cruel poetry in the idea of you trying to stretch, loosen up. And of course, the opposite is happening. You are tensing up, you are coiling inside of yourself, and you're describing something that I always think about when I watch what I presume from afar to be the armchair psychological diagnosis of terror when I watch Bryce Young. And I'm thinking to myself, if I'm him, I'm waking up in the morning on a Sunday, and I am dreading going to work. And I'm curious if you felt that actually in those terms.
Sundays were just, like, miserable, Pablo, miserable. And so when you play once a week, you really live by, like, the day of the week. And as you got closer to Sunday, that, like, anxiety crank just cranked up tighter and tighter. And it just came. So, like, on Monday, you were, even though you probably just got your ass kicked the day before, like, there was, like, a sigh of relief because you're like, I don't have to take the field again. And then, like, Tuesday, and it would just go. And as you got to Thursday and Friday, that thing would just be cranking. And Saturday's pregame walkthrough or travel. And then Sunday pregame was when it was absolutely maxed out. Like, I'll never forget sitting on my stool at my locker, the hours leading up to kickoff. And I was actually not even at that stool, Pablo. Like, again, like just in outer space, my head just consumed with self-doubt. Like, God, what if I throw an interception? What if I throw an incompletion? What if they start booing me in the stadium?
I want to jump in on that. The stadium, the crowd, hearing boos. I remember watching you, and I remember hearing them chanting for your backup to play. David Carr, right?
Yeah, 70,000 people chanting the backup's name.
I mean, just what a person is left with as they are disassociating from their physical form and hearing a mass of people who are supposed to love you, by the way. What do you actually want in that moment more than anything?
Oh, I want them to like me. I want validation, Pablo. All I wanted, and at the crux of all of this, is just to prove everybody that I was worth it.
Yeah.
That I was worth the number one pick. And I want so badly to win for them. Yes. No. And I'm holding on so tight that, like, I've become my own worst enemy, actually. You know, and I would look forward to your point, like, of the games. I so used to look forward to away games, Pablo. It was amazing. Like, my rookie year, my first few years, like, away games were, I was like, oh, yes, we're on the road, which is insane as a quarterback. Because, like,
backwards.
Now you got to deal with crowd noise and 70,000 people cheering against, you know, like literally making noise. You can't even use a snap count. Like, that's insane to say in hindsight, like for me, because that's just not the way it should be. But I several years like that. Like, I looked forward to road trips.
Right.
I felt like it eased the pressure just a little bit.
And so when you watch Bryce Young in the present tense, a guy who has actually in real time been benched and replaced by a capable backup in Andy Dalton, who just, by the way, became the first guy all season to throw for 3 touchdowns and hit 300 yards.
Yeah, but like, this is the idea. Like, I heard this, Dave Canales came out and said when he made this, he's like, hey, well.
You know, and ultimately just kind of lands on my shoulders to be able to make the best decision for our group, to give us our best chance to win this week. And we focus.
And it's like, no shit. Andy gave you the best chance to win all last year. Like, just like I should not have been playing that's not the point. Like, Peyton Manning didn't give the Colts the best chance to win his rookie year. He threw 28 interceptions. He set an NFL record. Like, that's not the point. That once you had committed yourself to that path, this whole like baptism by fire, like, and then here in Carolina, you pull the rug out 2 weeks in, which I have a lot of emotions on this whole thing, but like, having watched Bryce's tape, and this gets at the core of even what I went through.
Yes.
You can develop bad habits. This idea that you're just going to play through dysfunction is not very sane, right? Like, it's not logical. Like, you go out there as a quarterback, you're so dependent on everything around you, not just the 10 guys in the huddle, but defense and special teams, and just to have a chance to show what you can do, right? Like, that just gives you, that's just the starting line. You can go out there and in the midst of this dysfunction, which is what the Panthers are, dysfunctional, right? That you can develop bad habits. You can lose confidence. You can become rattled, right? The pressure and anxiety that certainly comes with the expectations of being the number one pick can consume you. And I felt like that's what I saw in Bryce this year. And it so much reminded me of myself. And so actually maybe him getting to finally sit back and watch a guy like Andy, who, by the way, this is a like Pro Bowl quarterback. He's taking his team to playoffs. Like, this guy can play at a high level, and he showed on Sunday. But maybe that actually is the best thing for Bryce, but that still doesn't let this organization off the hook for like what they did.
Right.
The lack of a plan. And this was really, I think, what I felt like when I was going through it. You're alone. Nobody knows what that's like. And the small world of like top pick quarterbacks, it is a small world. And I remember how alone I felt. And then watching Bryce, how bad I feel for him. And dude, what he's trying to do is so freaking hard. It's so hard, right? Like, turn this organization around, play as a young rookie quarterback. Here he's just heading into a second year. Like, it is so hard. And I think you lose sight of that sometimes when you're in it.
There's a chill in the air, leaves are falling to the ground, and the WNBA playoffs are underway. This is what fall is all about. And you can make each weekend even more exciting by getting into the action with my partners at DraftKings. And right now, all new customers who bet $5 will instantly get $200 in bonus bets. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and sign up using my promo code Pablo. That is $200 in bonus bets instantly. And personally, I'm eyeing the New York Liberty at minus 145 to win their series against the Las Vegas Aces. I just saw the Liberty beat the Atlanta Dream. And yes, I understand that Asia Wilson might be the MVP, the best player in the league. Actually, there's no might be about it. She is. But this Liberty team, they got something special that I've witnessed myself. So stay in on the action and use your $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings. And if sports betting is not yet available in your state, do not worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. So go and download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. And new customers, use my promo code Pablo and bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That is promo code Pablo, only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/FTBall.
You had how many offensive coordinators in 7 years?
I had 7 and 7.
So Bryce Young is on pace to break your record potentially in terms of just like coaches out, GMs out, the revolving door of dysfunction leading to a lack of consistency when it comes to who is helping me actually.
This is what's crazy. He's had 3 head coaches in a year, right? Multiple play callers. I think he's had 3 play callers in a year. We mentioned my rookie season. One of the worst rookie seasons in the history of football. Easily.
Agreed.
Pablo, I played 8 years for the Niners. 8 years.
That's so,
okay. The
yes.
patience that they allowed me to grow through. I was not good for several years. Not good. And the patience that they showed to let me grow and develop compared to what Bryce is going through. Like this has never happened before. We've never seen this lack of support for a number 1 overall pick and a guy they traded up for.
Well, that's the other thing.
They didn't just walk into the number 1 pick. They traded up for this.
Which is, again, this is the other thing, right? The rumors now, and again, man, if you're a number 1 overall pick and you're hearing, okay, we believe in this guy, already you're thinking, well, are they believing in me publicly because they're trying to goose my trade value so they can charge someone else more because they're just lying now? I just imagine that you're living inside a hall of mirrors and every reflection of yourself looks f***ing ugly. That's what I imagine Bryce Young's life right now.
And you can't see out. You just can't even see the light of day, right? Like there is no end of the tunnel. This season just started. Like he's, you know, I only pray that, you know, listen, 2 guys that were just in that building that they didn't think were good enough were Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, right? And the Carolina Panthers organization said, nah, these guys aren't good enough. Meanwhile, you know, Baker Mayfield's kicking their ass in the division currently. Sam Darnold, he was good enough for Kyle Shanahan and Kevin O'Connell. He seems to be lighting up the scoreboard now, you know, like
Minnesota.
This organization obviously is struggling to identify and keep talent. And that's an understatement. You know, Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore and Brian Burns all sent packing. These guys are franchise players that they've just like, it was like a yard sale sign, you know?
Well,
discount shopping.
When Andy Dalton gets in there and is revelatory to people on the outside who have been wondering, okay, is this a Bryce problem? Is this a Panthers problem? He's helping them, us, on the outside, isolate the variable. It looks like Bryce, right, has great culpability when it comes to, okay, if Andy can do it, why can't you? If you are Bryce, though, what are you thinking as you're watching Andy Dalton immediately go in there?
I hope that Bryce was able to analyze and watch Andy operate, right? Like, and there is no, you could not put a value on the up close front row view to watch Andy prepare all week, right? In the meeting rooms with coaches, before and after meetings as he preps, in the weight room, getting ready, how he deals with the receivers. Like there are 1,000 things that Bryce will get an up-close view to watch Andy do. And Andy's been doing this for 14 years, okay? He is like the vast experience and knowledge that he has accumulated, that now Bryce will get to watch that, right? And even though that it's still not a great situation, but watch Andy go out and play fast and get rid of the ball and continue to do the little things that added up to the first 300-yard, 3-touchdown performance of the season. And this was like what was so ridiculous last year, like this whole idea of like, Andy was sitting there all of last year.
Yeah.
What was the rush? Like, why you traded up to get Bryce? Why wouldn't you as an organization do everything in your power to ensure that when Bryce takes the field, he has the best chance of success? You have made this huge investment for your company, for your team, and you've literally just like sabotaged him. There is no plan in place to like, how are we going to, big term vision, long-term vision, how are we going to ensure success? And they're impatient and they just want to see the shiny new toy, right? And they know it puts butts in the seats. And so they're like, let's just get them out there, right? And they can't stay patient. They can't stick to their guns. And the problem is you have guys like Peyton and CJ Stroud that mess it up for everyone.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
like CJ Stroud just had the greatest rookie season ever playing right away. And so probably the truth is that like there isn't one size fits all. Like that's just the truth. Like every situation that you walk into is different, right? Like the supports that are in place, how good's the team. So when you're factoring risk here, you've taken this pick. Let's play them early. Let's throw them out there and hope that they work their way through it. And let's hope they're CJ Stroud and hope that they're, Peyton Manning. And obviously, we've seen how many times that's happened in history. Not many. Or, we let them sit and wait and watch. Again, I think that the NFL has undervalued the veteran quarterback, that there are guys out there that can still play winning football. And let's let them be the bridge. Because if you throw them out there more often than not, they're they're going to have a negative war like I did. It's going to be so bad. I hope, flipping again to this year, like at the Patriots, Jacoby Brissett is a good quarterback. Let him go out and play. That team is not ready. Again, new head coach, lots of new things going on. Offensive line isn't very good. Like, let Jacoby go out there and play. Let Drake May sit and watch. I hope that Gerard Mayo can stay patient and stick to this plan. And if the losses mount, can still stay strong to this. I hope.
It is a remarkable thing. You just don't hear many athletes, current or former, say, I wish I had been benched.
The lack of a plan and vision and long-term vision is so absurd when you think about how big these are billion-dollar organizations.
Multi-billion.
They got David Tepper, who's this hedge fund, one of the best hedge fund managers of all time, right? This guy is really smart. And they've just absolutely, this now is, put this up on the wall is what not to do, right? You've got Peyton Manning on one hand and you got this one on the other.
Yes, two different models for pain tolerance, for risk tolerance. Look, I want to zoom out actually on Carolina here because it's not just this one case study. The larger picture of starting quarterbacks in the NFL this season as of week 1, it was 27.6. That's the average age of the NFL starting quarterback. That's the youngest it has been since 1957, right? In 2017, it was over 30 years old. There were as many week 1 starters with only 1 to 2 years experience as with 9+ years of experience. Your sport, as much as we are decrying this trend line, is leaning ever more into throw them out there, it seems.
Did we not just watch what Tom Brady was still able to do late in his career? There's such power in the veteran quarterback and just in what they've seen, right? Like to go out and operate, so much of playing quarterback is decision-making, right? Like beyond the physical attributes. It is these little incalculable, unmeasurable little things that add up. And this is obviously to a much larger concept of kind of mentorship. But like you go look at Patrick's path, right? You go look at like Jordan Love's and Aaron Rodgers' path. In all of those cases, could they have started earlier? Sure.
Yeah, but that's because of you, buddy. Hold on. Let's not abstract this. That's because you were ahead of Patrick Mahomes.
Yes, but like my point and it's hard when I was in it, right? Like, no, you don't want to get the replacement. They draft your replacement and he's sitting there, right? Like, that's not like something you wish for in the moment. But from a football fan, if you are a Chiefs fan if you like, how about just an operational, you look at like the brilliance of it from a big picture. Like, yeah, like, hey, draft him. I was in my 13th year at that point. I had my career year by far. I mean, I led the NFL in a couple categories, like was in the MVP conversation by the end of the season. And the brilliance of again, Patrick got to see an up-close view of it for an entire year. Everything that I had accumulated, all the knowledge, the routine, like the operational playbook of playing quarterback, like Patrick got the up-close view and it's like, hey, take what you want, take what works for you, and then send me on my way and get some draft picks in return, right? Like, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. And then, by the way, Patrick's his first start the following season, I think he threw 6 touchdowns. Like you've just ensured, again, you traded up to get him with the 10th pick. You want to do everything in your power to ensure that it works, that he has a chance at success. And that's part of this. And like, it seems so obvious from the outside looking in, and yet it's still so rare.
Yeah, look, it was not lost on me as I was watching the Super Bowl this year. I'm watching Patrick Mahomes win his 3rd Super Bowl, his 3rd Super Bowl MVP, and he goes up to the podium behind this microphone, the biggest television show in America, and he says, I want to thank Alex Smith.
Yeah, I attribute a lot of my early success to Alex. I mean, the way he was able to be a pro every single day and the way he was able to go about not only being a great football player but a great human being, it showed me a ton. I learned a lot about how to read coverages and blitzes from him. He gave me a blueprint of how to go about a week and preparing yourself, and it showed me how to have success at an early point in my career that I don't think I would have got anywhere else.
He credits you for doing the thing that you did not receive, which is, it seems, you helped him feel less alone.
Pablo, the 2 quarterbacks, when I made my first start for the Niners, the 2 quarterbacks had a combined 1 start. The 2 other QBs in the room. So there were 3 of us. 1 start. They were a 2nd-year and 3rd-year player who had 1 start. And I'll never forget, after practice, sitting in the film room, watching film by myself and having no idea what I was doing. I put in the hours, Pablo. I was working hard. I was trying hard. Like I'd heard stories of, again, Peyton and these guys that like just watched so much film, and I'd be in there too, watching film, and had absolutely no idea what I was doing. Like no idea what I was looking at, what I should be looking at, how to do it, like none. And I stumbled for years doing this and slowly learned as I went and made mistakes. But it was it was 5-6 years in the making. Just inconsistency and crappy play and mistakes. And so fast forward to Patrick again. I had been obviously an early pick, and here's Patrick had been an early pick. And like, I'm very well remembered what I went through. And again, that feeling of being alone. And I didn't wish that on anyone. And again, Patrick and I hit it off, like, respect, give respect, get respect. And like, he and I became fast friends, and yeah, as much as he was the guy that's going to take my job, but like, you don't wish that on him,
It makes me think, though, that when you are an NFL team trying to copycat what the best teams are doing, I get why the Bears went and got Caleb Williams with the number 1 overall pick. He is, of course, the most visually, at least, like Patrick among prospects that I can recall. Although there are some imitators also in college, just for the record here, who are also just trying to be like him. A couple. A little startling, a little weird. Dylan Raiola, just know that we see you, and it's obvious. But Caleb Williams, his thing in college was accuracy. That was like the one thing nobody ever, it was a bunch of things, but nobody ever questioned how precise he was, on top of his ability to overextend plays, which was fun more than anything. But now, okay, he goes from super accurate to inaccurate through 3 weeks. I'm just wondering, is that a nerves thing? Is that a feet thing? What do you diagnose when it comes to a number 1 overall pick who is struggling to do that?
You could take his first start, Pablo, and just burn the tape. Like, it's your first start. Mine was a blur. You hope to get through it and forget it. Somehow they won that football game, which great. I think there's good player in there. Like he's got it, and he's showing glimpses, and I think you just got to continue to give him time. There's been no running game to speak of in Chicago at all. It's been completely on his shoulders. Young offensive line as well. So, like, it's a work in progress. Bunch of new faces. He's running a different system for the first time. Like, it just takes time. And as impatient as we all are, and the media doesn't help, right? Like with this, they need to be patient. For me, just even in these 3 weeks, I feel like I have seen progression from him.
When you were going through it and there were people that you wanted to measure yourself against, not historically, but just like your sort of contemporaries, it does occur to me that I plan to talk to you about how all these young quarterbacks are fundamentally in some form all sorts of beds. And out comes another quarterback who plays for another one of your former teams, Jayden Daniels. And that dude has a day that makes you feel like we made the right choice. And all of this is small sample size theater. But I am curious, how much were you paying attention to guys that you would be measured against while they were off and occasionally killing it?
Well, listen, you're talking to a guy that to this day will forever be tied to Aaron Rodgers, right? He and I, forever. And so I get it. I totally get it. And, you know, my first few years obviously were very different than his first few years in the league. But that's the reality, right? And Bryce Young and CJ Stroud will forever be tied together.
Same deal.
And this draft class as a whole, all these QBs that went in the first round, again, will all be lumped together as we track their progress and careers. I think one of the unique things about this draft class, where especially was Jayden and Bo Nix, because of the change in college football with NIL and the transfer portal, that, listen, when I was 20 when I got drafted. Like, my choices were to stay at Utah, you know, Urban had left for Florida, or go pro and make money, right? Like, it was binary. That's it. Like, these guys now, there's lots of choices. In fact, if you're not going to be an early pick, like, you probably make more money in college, right? Mm-hmm. And you can, by the way, you can transfer anywhere you want and play immediately and, you know, guarantee go to a great place to have success. And so what I'm getting at is just that Jayden and Bo Nix, these guys are 5-year starters. 5 years. Bo Nix has played more football than anybody ever. You know, Jayden's right there with him. Yep. These guys have so much experience. And I think it's made the college game better. It's made quarterbacking in college especially better.
Definitely.
Right? Older guys that are more experienced. And now when they come to the NFL, I think they are more pro ready. Like, I watched Jayden. He's so cool and calm in the pocket. Like, he does not look like a rookie.
Oh, that throw,
and I do think
where
that
he's
has to come
up
from,
and the blitz is coming and he hits that, you know, that deep go ball.
Totally.
We've only got 10 guys on the field. They're down in 7. This one is launched from McLaurin. He's got it. Touchdown.
Well, even when you think about his progression in college, like Arizona State, again, he's starting as a young guy and playing. And then, by the way, I'll just transfer to LSU, which is like a mini NFL team, you know? And then I'll go do this in the SEC. And my style worked there. I won the freaking Heisman Trophy. And now I'm stepping up again. So there's been this gradual step. Like, it's not as much of the 0 to 60, you know, for me, going from the Mountain West Conference and playing Wyoming to, you know, playing, you know, Ray Lewis and the Baltimore Ravens. Like, that just was very different. So for Jayden, I feel like that experience that he possesses, the calmness in the pocket, like, man, it looks unbelievable. It's why he's, you know, set records already.
I want to ask you, though, point blank, if Caleb Williams or Bryce Young or Trevor Lawrence at this point, if they were to call you and say, hey, man, what's the thing that I need to make sure that I do, whether it's any approach, any part of the approach of living this job, what do you think is being underrated still?
You know, Trevor's a little different. I mean, he's signed his second contract. I mean, he's one of the highest paid guys in the league. And Pablo, with that, there was always a direct correlation for me. It's like becoming the number 1 overall pick again. The expectation is to play like it. And, you know, for me, when in my career, when I did sign a big contract, like my rookie one, and also later was fortunate enough to sign another big contract, like, expectations come with that. right? Like, yeah, that's great. Hooray. We got, like this is amazing, life-changing, thing that happened, but like it mounts for you. The pressure mounts. And so Trevor's kind of dealing with a whole nother animal. And also the expectations for this team are no longer to like, hey, go 7-9.
Correct.
They're there to make the playoffs and win playoff games and again continue to elevate. And so for them to be 0-3 and then just to not even be competitive, this last Monday night, like that's only going to increase. Again, remember that like anxiety crank that's only getting jacked up here for them in that building. And it's going to mount. And again, that stress, like how does it affect people? How does it affect Doug Peterson and Trevor? You cannot bury the self-doubt, Pablo. Like it's there, right? You have to confront it. Like this is real. This is hard. It is tough. And you have to meet it, right? You can't wallow in it either, but you got to meet it in order to be able to move past it. And anytime that anxiety kicks in or self-doubt, you got to be able to push it aside and get back to like what's important. And you've got to get back to the fearlessness. You can't go out there and try to be perfect as the number 1 overall pick. You can't go out there trying not to make mistakes. Have the courage to fail. As crazy as that sounds, like that's what you have to get to. And again, that's not holding on so freaking tight that again you become your own worst enemy.
I want to take stock of the league because the state of the union right now for passers, for guys who did this job, it's not looking great.
Yeah.
When you're watching football right now, you're seeing less of everything that you'd want more of from your quarterbacks. Passing is down. As we said, the Andy Dalton thing, 300 yards and 3 touchdowns did not show up until deep in week 3. Average depth of completion is down. Yards per game is down. Yards per completion is down. Touchdown passes. So, and there's a bit of a murder mystery here, Alex, right?
Yep.
There are a bunch of suspects. I want to lay them out here for you briefly. The greater prevalence of young quarterbacks, as now chronicled. The rise of cover 2 defenses has been a thing, a debate, an active debate. Should we ban them? Has been an argument. Of course, you have defensive coordinators who are getting better at disguising coverages, bad offensive line play, the lack of preparation because preseason, has become less of a functional thing at all. Do you have a favorite explanation as to why passing right now, despite being the thing everybody cares about the most, is also suffering in this way?
There's a lot of reasons that do go into it. You hit on a lot of them. I think the major issue is just cyclical here. I mean, listen, we in the last 5 to 10 years, we really saw the emergence of kind of shotgun spread offense, RPO, run game, take over the NFL. Like it wasn't that long ago. Like I ran a similar offense in college. Like when I got drafted, it was considered gimmicky. Like it was a joke, the offense that I ran in college. Like it would never work in the pros. And then it has seemingly taken over the NFL. And so you've really seen, I think, a swing on the defensive side that, listen, we're not going to give it up. We're not going to let Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase throw it over our head. We're going to keep them in front of us. We're going to double it. We're not like these, especially these receivers on the outside, certainly a bunch of them that all got paid here in the last couple of years. These guys are monsters. You cannot play them one-on-one. They will absolutely wreck a football game. And so I do think we've seen the emergence. When I came to the NFL, do you know what middle linebackers looked like, Pablo? I mean, they were 260-pound neck rolls, just big, giant, like, because you want to know what they were used to doing is like taking on fullbacks and 2-back run and stopping the run. And again, a quote unquote pro style system. Do you know what middle linebackers look like now? Like they are fast flow, sideline to sideline, 220 pounds, maybe. These guys are like safeties playing at the linebacker because you need people that could play in space given what offense has gone. And now you, again, and this is just the nature of kind of cycles in football. Like, we've seen the other way, the swing again to all these little bodies on the field. And it's weird that you're starting to see a little emergence of like, the Pittsburgh Steelers, we're just going to run the football.
Oh, yeah.
The San Diego Chargers have a 300-pound fullback, and we're going to run the football.
Derrick Henry,
like Arizona
suddenly,
Cardinals.
Yep.
Yes.
With the Ravens.
And we're these kind of old school, multiple tight ends, fullbacks back out on the field, big fullbacks. And this is a way to win football games. And it's weird that now defenses are having a hard time defending those offenses, right? Because they seem so foreign. That the guys out there, this is weird. They're like, weird. I formation? What is that? Like that's crazy.
I mean, really what you're saying is in the way that your suit as the number 1 overall draft pick was baggy,
Oh, God.
we're cyclically coming back around. We've gone skinny
pray
jeans. Now we're going back to 15 buttons up to your neck like you had. It's fashion.
I pray not. I do see baggy coming back on my Instagram, Pablo, but I pray that the 6-button suit, the Carmelo Anthony
the Steve Harvey
suit that I was wearing never makes its way back.
Ugh.
Listen, we're 3 weeks into the season, so there's still a lot of football left. But I do think another thing is kind of the whole mentality to offseason and preseason as well. Like to Bryce Young, and not him, it's not his decision, but like the Carolina Panthers, he played 1 series in the preseason. 1 series. He has a brand new offense, brand new head coach, and to get ready for the season, he played a series. And that's most of the NFL. It is the vast majority of the NFL. A few places, and it's weird, the places that take preseason seriously are Kansas City and San Francisco, and the teams that ended up in the championships game. Detroit and Baltimore.
Yeah,
we know how much John Harbaugh takes preseason seriously. It's funny how those teams seem to have success because they're operated differently. There's a different culture.
Simultaneously, and we've alluded to it already, but the middle class of quarterbacks, right? A small group now, ever smaller for those reasons, right? Teams want to hit the giant home run. But you watch and you see not just Andy Dalton, but as you say, Geno Smith, these guys who are not going to be talked about or fetishized in the ways that number 1 overall picks have been. But I just wonder, are we missing that market inefficiency?
We've lost the middle market for quarterbacks. The whole nature of the quarterback in the NFL is like if you're a starting caliber quarterback, Pablo, that you can ask for $50 million. And then you're either that or you're not. Like that, there used to be a middle market for quarterbacks.
Yes.
That like, hey, this guy's a pretty good player, but he's not top tier, so we're going to pay him a middle market contract, which is still great money, and then we can spend the leftover on a receiver or a left tackle, and that's just gone. Like again, it's if you're a starting caliber quarterback, like you can command. Like when you look at the list of top 10 paid quarterbacks, I think 2 of them have ever made the playoffs or won a playoff game. Like it's crazy. Like that what these guys are getting paid. And we've lost that. And I also think there's this huge AFC, NFC bias, Pablo.
Oh, explain this. I don't know this.
So like forever, the last several years, the AFC is the best conference. And a lot of it because of their quarterbacks. Like when you think about the list of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, it's all AFC. It's Patrick, it's Joe Burrow, it's Josh Allen, it's Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers is over there now. Like the list just keeps going of the AFC QBs.
Yep.
Yeah, like these like superheroes larger than life. And the NFC, I feel like just absolutely gets dismissed. And you hit on this list. Like these guys so far this year are outplaying their AFC, like the big name, high profile guys, like the Geno Smiths of the world that like, oh, this guy, he was a backup for like 8 years, right? Like Sam Darnold, was he out of football?
The guy you have nightmares about winding up with starting for your fantasy football team are the guys killing it in real life.
Killing it. Baker Mayfield, oh, all of a sudden he's lining it up. Jared Goff, oh, Kyler Murray. These guys that like aren't seen as good as their like AFC peers. And like it couldn't be more untrue right now. Like these guys are playing unbelievable football.
It reminds me of a bottom line feeling that I'm left with every time I end up learning a ton from you, which is that in the NFL, when it comes to quarterbacks in particular, nobody knows anything. Like we can reverse engineer. And again, I come to you because you lived it and you have this first person perspective. But when you zoom out and you consider the cycle and the arc of all of it, Alex, like, we don't spend, I think it's very difficult to find a thing that America obsesses over more than quarterbacks, that they are worse at accurately forecasting.
I think it's fascinating. And this goes back to the draft. You and I talked about the history of the Wonderlic.
Yes, the S2
and the 40
test now.
And the combine, the S2 test. How do you identify an NFL quarterback? What is actually important, and how do you identify those traits? And so far, apparently nobody has a clue. How does Brock Purdy go to the last pick in the draft? I mean, it doesn't make sense. The greatest quarterback of all time, for now, is Tom Brady. Like, how does he fall?
Right.
And yet, how many, build-a-player type QBs have gone in the first round? These just, again, the 6'5", shredded, can throw it 80 yards, huge hands, have not performed in the NFL. Like, it's got the highest bust rate of any position in the draft. Like, when you look at first-round positions, quarterback is like, it's below 50%, the hit rate. And so clearly the NFL historically has no idea what they're doing on this. And so I think it's fascinating, again, that what are the attributes and characteristics that are most important? And obviously they're not measurables. We can just start there.
Yep.
They're not things that we know how to measure to this point. And certainly the S2 test is trying to figure that out.
Yep. Processing speed, all that.
I went around and asked, with ESPN, I got to interview a ton of QBs this offseason in training camp, and that was one of my questions for all these guys, because I kind of wanted to go to the source.
Yeah, I know you said that with Aaron Rodgers. Who else did you talk to?
Let's hear from Aaron. Yeah, let's talk to Patrick. Let's, Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff and Brock Purdy. What, you're a GM. What are you looking for? All of resiliency came up, right? That it is going to be a freaking hard road. And you better be mentally tough and resilient if you want a chance to make it. And I think that's something that we lose sight of, because we only really see these guys on Sundays, and they're so glorified. And even the great ones, you go through, struggle is such a part of everybody's story to success. And so you better have the makeup, I think, to work through that, beyond whatever physical attributes. And I get to the point that there is a physical floor that I think any guy has to have, right? But that's all it is just a floor. And then from there, I think it's these things that you can't measure that probably have the biggest impact, on their success.
You need to own the vulnerability. You need to own,
yes.
To be a leader means to be vulnerable. The reason I say nobody is better equipped to talk about this job than you is because you, through pain and suffering and triumph, and then pain again, and then triumph again, and now podcasting, you clued into that in a way that is just blunt and honest.
I spent 6 years trying to be perfect. I was scared to death to make a mistake. I took the field with the worst mindset possible. And certainly there was a moment of hitting rock bottom. We mentioned, the entire Olive Candlestick screaming, David Carr, was a moment that I'll never forget. But the only way I got out of it was through great teammates and great leaders that helped me get back to the other side of it, right? The courage, the fearlessness. Jim Harbaugh and Andy Reid, changed my career. Absolutely changed my career. These guys, I think, recognized, how difficult it is to do this, brought joy back into it, but really the fearlessness. Neither of those coaches reinforced the kind of the fear of making mistakes. I hate do-overs. As a player, Pablo, I hated do-overs, in practice. There was this idea that you had to be perfect in practice. And my first, I feel like that's what consumed my first 5 years in the league. God, if we had an incompletion, I can just hear Mike Singletary saying, "Do it again," and you're just oh no. And now the scout team knows the play, and the next one would be incomplete again. It's "Do it again," and it just was miserable. It was miserable, and it only reinforced this idea that I had to be perfect. And then to fast forward to Jim and Andy, and that's just not the philosophy.
No job has more of a credit dysmorphia, if I can invent a term like that, where it's just sort of everybody has a warped sense of what they're actually responsible for because everybody sees this as the most important thing.
The reason the NFL is the greatest challenge in sports is because it takes 1,000 different things to get the formula right. It does. And those are constantly changing. And I think that's what I think is fascinating about it. I think that's why people are consumed with it, and I know that's why I am as well. But for anybody trying to take credit for the singular thing in that, winning and quarterback success, again, is just doesn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Alex Smith, my friend, thank you for helping me get better at knowing what the I'm talking about.
Anytime, Pablo.
For more from Alex Smith, by the way, I greatly encourage you to check out his new podcast entitled Glue Guys, which he co-hosts with Shane Battier and Ravi Gupta. It is devoted to discussions from across sports and across business about how to make the people we work with better at what they do. And because I now consider Alex Smith, after our late nights at ESPN Daily and these episodes at PTFO, a branch of my podcast coaching tree, I should disclose to you that it's really good, this new show that he has. As for us, I am Pablo Torre, and this has been Pablo Torre Finds Out, produced by Meadowlark Media. We'll talk to you next time.